What's the best prank you've ever heard of, seen, experienced? When I was in high school, my sister used to set her alarm for 6 AM to get up and ready. One morning I had a brilliant idea and set my alarm for 5:45. I snuck into her room, jumped into her closet and waited for her alarm to go off. She wound up snoozing her alarm. I wound up falling asleep in her closet waiting. When she woke up at 7 o'clock to get dressed an hour later, she found her brother asleep in her closet. Definitely scared her, but didn't work as well as I hoped. Whoa. Honestly, it sounds like it turned out better than you thought. You squeezed in some extra sleep, unless you weren't planning to get extra sleep and were going to do something else after that. We had a guy at work that could not keep a secret. He was famous for it. It earned him the nickname Loose Lips. Anyway, one day my boss, security, did not come in because of another obligation. Loose Lips, who worked constantly on our high-tech security system, asked where he was, and my work partner, in a moment of inspiration, said, "I can't tell you." Loose Lips became excited and begged. Finally, partner caved and swore Loose Lips to secrecy. Then told him our supervisor was on his way to Moncton to collect the $10 million he won the night before in a lottery. Absolute BS. We had a great time using our security cameras tracking him going from cubicle to cubicle. From building to building, we kept our supervisor informed by text of the developments. He was amused, to say the least. But mid-afternoon we got a text from him. Loose Lips knows I just texted him instead of you by mistake. Sure enough, the cameras revealed a fuming Loose Lips stomping towards the security building. He charged in, swore at us. He was not a happy camper. But wait, my partner said we swore you to secrecy. Who did you tell? Loose Lips' shoulders sagged. I told everybody, he moaned. Well, now you had better go tell them all the truth. Yeah, I guess. Much hilarity watching him retrace his steps. The great thing is the gag depended on his own character fault to be successful, and it was a great success. BTW, he didn't improve. Did this to a guy at work. Bowling league. Wasn't familiar. He threw 3 strikes in a row. When the monitor flashed a turkey, he asked what it meant. We told him to go to the main counter, because he just won a coupon for a free turkey. The staff had a blast with that one. Apparently the reason it's called a turkey is because bowling alleys used to have special events where they gave away prizes to people that accomplished various goals in a game. And the traditional prize for 3 consecutive strikes was a turkey. When I was 16, I was throwing a teenage strop at family dinner and stormed out. When I left the room, my dad told my mum and sister that I was acting up because I was gay and frustrated about coming out. He swore them to secrecy because I wasn't ready to tell them yet. 6 months later, I brought a girlfriend home and my sister shouted, "What? Dad told us you were gay." She'd believed it for half a year without mentioning it to me. My boyfriend's high school had a tradition of pranking this one science teacher every year. His graduating class disassembled an old car, dragged the pieces upstairs, and reassembled it in the teacher's classroom. I remember this Drake and Josh episode. No one knows for sure, but rumor had it that it was the chess club. That autumn of the senior year, someone wrote the principal's name as an a-hole in grass seed across the berm on the other side of the school grounds. The next spring, when the grass was long, you could make it out if someone showed you and you were looking for it. It was plain as day when the grass was freshly cut. Checkmate. Outstanding move. My cousin thinks her house is haunted, so her husband and I plugged a wireless mouse into her computer and he's been screwing with her since. Honey, I think the ghost has been watching PRN on our computer. While traveling up the west coast of America, we stopped in this small town for one night. When we went out early that evening, walking through town, we saw this $5 bill fluttered ahead of us down the street. Always just out of reach. We quickly realized couple of kids were literally doing the dollar bill on the fishing line prank. They were laughing and having the best time. It was such a goddamn pure and wholesome sight that my heart grew 3 sizes. While working at a gas station, I came across one of those ads that looks like a $100 dollar bill until you open it. I'd drop it at the bottom of the counter, out of sight to me, by where customers' feet would be, and just wait. I dive afloat in the Rose Parade. This kid wanted to drive it so bad. He would not give up on asking and it got a little irritating. So I told him if you want to drive it you need to go down to the DMV and ask to take the test for a Class F endorsement on your license. I didn't think he would take it serious but he did. Waited at the DMV to be told WTF are you talking about? Lol, he probably couldn't tell your sarcasm. 1 year for April Fools, a local newspaper posted an article about a truck full of wine bottles that had crashed. The article stated that wine was spilling everywhere and they didn't want it to go to waste. So anyone could bring buckets to fill. One guy at my dad's work saw the article and ran out. All the people at work laughed at him. Halfway to the place where the truck supposedly was, the guy realized his mistake. He then went and bought a couple of cheap wine bottles which he emptied into the bucket he had brought with him. And then walked back into work, tricking a couple of other people to run out for this wine truck. He turned it around, what a comeback. My senior year of high school. I knew it would be my last April Fools at my parents' house. So the day before, they were gone for a couple hours and I printed out 200 pictures of Nicolas Cage. I hid them in ridiculous places. The storage closet, crawl spaces, books, in the pantry, etc. 5 years later and they are still finding them. Imagine if they move and the new residents keep finding them. I was skateboarding down the street a few years ago when I noticed in the distance some young kids doing the invisible rope across the road to stop the car trick. With this knowledge I decided to play along, so I skated as fast as I could, and when they pulled the imaginary rope across the road I cracked a high ollie over it. They just cheered. I made their day. Paul Gascoigne, English footballer, convinced a film crew that he had a home in the Scottish Highlands. He got them to follow him all the way to the door. He then claimed he had forgotten his key and knocked on the door. When the actual owner answered, he said he was doing the Daz doorstep challenge and what was her favorite laundry powder. George Clooney had a roommate once who had a cat. The litter box was next to the toilet. George woke up earlier than his roommate and would scoop the poop into the toilet. A couple days go by and the roommate asks George if he notices anything about the cat. That the cat hasn't pooped in several days. George says he hasn't noticed anything. The next day, George Clooney shat in the litter box. How the hell do you think of doing that? When I was at the office, someone connected a Bluetooth mouse to someone's computer and put the mouse next to the office printer. Lol, everyone was in on it. Just a casual nudge of the mouse as we walked by here and there. As time progressed he got a new mouse thinking his was broken. You should have seen his reaction when someone nudged the wireless again. It was priceless lol. It went on for a good 2 months before he realized office pranks were the only way to survive. We did the same but right next to the guy. Had a keyboard plugged in too, so he would get extra characters every now and again. The office was such a mess he didn't pick up on the fact we had extras. Good few months of him going mental. Another favorite was taking a screenshot of his desktop and setting it as his background. Alternating with rotating his desktop so it was upside down, or screenshotting and rotating. Also changing his mouse speed. Putting tape over the mouse or removing the ball when they were trackball mice. Oh, and wetting his chair. Not like a wet ass to set the tone for a shift in a shitty call center. A lady in our office can sometimes be difficult. But she is a pretty good sport. She always complains about gaining weight. Even though she has always been about the same size. One day I got the idea to start moving her desk back towards the wall about 1/4 after she left. Did this every day for a couple of weeks before she figured out she wasn't getting fatter. She got a little pissed at that one. Saw a video on Reddit maybe 6 months ago of some guy showering off in a communal shower, and one guy kept putting just a little bit of shampoo in his hair each time he went to rinse. So the guy kept washing suds out of his hair. Good clean fun indeed. I covered some of those sour neon worms in salt and passed them out to my friends. My brother replaced the sugar with salt when we were kids. And always used to tell on me when I put too much sugar on my Cheerios. But this day just kept encouraging me to pile it on. Grossest thing I've ever tasted. He got in trouble. But my dad had to leave the room because he couldn't keep a straight face. A former roommate of mine made fun of the fact that I went to UC Davis, a college known for its many cows on campus. For 7 months I kept inserting the word moo into our conversations and adamantly denying it whenever he would call me out on my strange behavior. On April Fool's Day, I told my story to my college's Facebook group, resulting in him receiving thousands of texts saying moo that day. Moo. B. Get out the way. The school up the road from my own had a clock tower. So for the grad prank one year, students walked a cow up the clock tower. A co-worker, Tom, had a 10 AM scheduled poop every day. And every day he would take the New York Times from the break room with him. Yeah, this was like a 30-minute break. One day he was asked to stop doing that because other people wanted to read the paper and it was kinda gross. So he started signing on to the net website and printing out the crossword puzzle. Dude was so dedicated that he had a clipboard and a pen tied to a string on the board just for his daily BM. Tom would print the puzzle to the big printer in our mail room, which was out of sight from his office. This was his downfall. One day his puzzle was picked up in a stack of other papers by the mail room guy, Greg, by mistake. Greg's desk is in the same room as the big printer. Greg didn't notice his mistake until Tom stormed back into the mail room to get the puzzle that he'd printed off a second time when the first had gone missing. Somehow Greg knew about the daily BM and importance of the puzzle. Greg held on to that originally puzzle, waited a week, and then swapped the puzzle with a new one on the printer before Tom could come in. Tom came back from the restroom much sooner than usual and extremely agitated that the printer had somehow saved and printed an old puzzle. Greg did this occasionally for the entire year leading up to Tom's retirement, stealing or swapping puzzles so that Tom would occasionally return from the bathroom much sooner than usual, outraged that he'd had the same puzzle from last Tuesday or whatever. Greg didn't tell anyone until the last few months. By the end of Tom's time with us, it was the highlight of my morning to watch a flustered Tom blow through the office complaining about how horrible the printer is. Greg told the story at Tom's retirement party. The outrage was very real. My girlfriend decided to prank her mom on April Fool's with a very elaborate pregnancy prank. She spent the week leading up to the prank eating much more than usual and being very vocal about how she'd been very hungry as of late. And a precursor to make it more believable, on the day, she started by giving her a congrats grandma card and her mom laughed it off. She then started leaving small hints here and there, like open tabs of baby names on the family computer. It culminated when her mom got ready to make dinner and opened the oven to find a bread roll in it. Her mom just blew up and started getting mad at her for getting pregnant. She was 18 when she made this prank and told her that she would have to break up with Emmy because she didn't want to bring any kind of bad reputation to my family. I thought it was hilarious. My teen son slipped a Ouija board into the pillowcase of my super religious aunt. She found it about 3 AM after a long work shift. As she was getting ready for bed, flipped her God-fearing shit and called me screaming bloody murder. She and her kids were so much fun to prank, they always fell for it and they always blamed the devil. Alright. So we have a painting that floats around the house. People take turns sticking it in weird spots to freak people out. So I go to bed one night and someone puts it at the foot of my bed. The door closing wakes me up, and I can only make out a face in the darkness. I spent a minute trembling under the covers before I realized what happened. At my work years ago, the 1st of April rolls around, which is basically the best day of the year for my department. Co-worker goes into our big photocopier room and slaps on a notice that says our printer is now voice automated. It's not, but you have to speak slowly and may have to repeat yourself. The entire management team ended up yelling at the printer for most of the day. All of the resorting to the old-fashioned way of just manually printing it by pressing buttons. Nobody figured it out until around lunchtime when our tech guy finally clued in that he hadn't known about this upgrade and that it was the 1st of April.